Okay, well, let's talk about the C circle versus the P circle just for a quick second. And it's a story that I have. Um, I used to own a record label called Play Records, and I produced 13 albums for that record label. I have sold it to Warner Brothers, but when I originally started it, I started the record label with 10 bands that I was booking. And I asked each of the 10 bands to give me a recording that I could put together in a compilation form. Many of you may think of it as like a mixtape. So I had 10 artists, and I went to the studio with each of their recordings, and I lined them all up, and I mastered the whole thing, and uh, released my first album on Play Records. It was called Exhibit A. And on Exhibit A, like I said, I had 10 artists and they all had one track. So they gave me a license to use their recordings on my own recording. So those 10 tracks in that particular order became a new Circle P copyright because it was 10 songs in a certain order from front to back that I was able to file for a Circle P copyright. So there were 10 Circle Cs because there were 10 songs, and there were 10 Circle Ps of the originals that they gave me. I was able to take all those Circle Ps, all 10 of them, put them together and form a new Circle P. Now, here's the story. One day I was at the Beachland Ballroom. The sound technician there, if you haven't met him, you will, because you're going to go out and do some networking and relationship building, is Big Audio Mike. And Big Audio Mike, okay, so I was at a gig there, and usually, just like any music professional, they usually stand or sit close to the soundboard because it's the best sound. And I was talking to Big Audio Mike, and he says, "Hey, Latimer, do you remember when we did Exhibit A?" Now, he was in a band called YB Normal, and they were one of the 10 bands that were on Exhibit A. And he said, "Do you remember when we put together that recording?" I said, "Yeah, I remember." He said, "Well, why don't you take that song and promote it for us online and, try and make some money?" I said, "Well, that'd be great, except there's a couple problems here. One of them is, who owns the song?" And he goes, "Oh, I can't remember who wrote it in our band," which told me that he didn't write it, which also tells me that he does not own the Circle C copyright. I said, "Okay, well, if you don't know who wrote it, who owns the recording, the master?" And he says, "Well, one of the band members probably has it." I said, "Well, who owns it? Does the band own it? Does one person own it? Who owns the recording?" He said, "Well, I got a copy of it." I said, "A copy is not what I'm talking about. Who owns the master? Who owns that recording?" Sometimes it's the recording studio. Sometimes it's a band. Sometimes it's a member of the band. I said, "Mike, you're asking me to do something that you don't own the C circle on, and you don't know if you own the P circle on. And this was years ago, and now you want me to release that song." I said, "I can't, because I own the P circle copyright of all 10 songs together. So the only thing that I can market is those 10 songs in that order. I can't market just one song." He's like, "Oh, well, I didn't think about that and how it could work." I said, "Well, that's kind of how it works. I can't legally take one song off and put it up online somewhere because I don't own that P circle copyright, and I don't have a license for that type of work with the C circle copyright owner." So That's the story. But I just want to let you know that there's that little nuance in there on who owns what. And if you're ever in the studio, I would recommend that before you sign the agreement, you need to know who's going to own that recording of that song. And it can be a very interesting negotiation.
Sorry, you had a Circle P for all the songs together?
Yes.
Okay.
That's my copyright that I own. It's all those songs together in one.
That was for Circle P though, right? Not Circle C? What was it about?
Right. It's not a Circle C. I didn't write any of that music, but I did take all of those recordings, put them together in a certain order, and that is my P Circle copyright. Now, if someone else were to take those 10 songs in a different order, that's a different P Circle copyright. So mine were in a particular order from song 1 to song 10, and those were the ones that I own and control. Now, my second album was called Exhibit B, and my third album was called Exhibit C. I did the same thing with the same idea. Now, it just so happens that Exhibit C, I'm selling tons of them because there was a keyboardist playing on one of the tracks by the name of Trent Reznor. Trent Reznor played keyboards on a song by a band called Cool Down Daddy. And Cool Down Daddy has a recording on Exhibit C, but Trent Reznor played keyboards on it. And because of his name being associated with Exhibit C, I'm selling a lot of copies. It's fine with me. Any questions on the C Circle versus the P Circle?